You can see.
He can send us that. That was my next. Yeah, I will. Because I couldn't keep up with you with your.
Well, and that, I intended.
Thank you, man.
Well, and like I said, if you guys have questions about chemical or even on the roadway side, if they're starting to design stuff, and because that's what I'm trying to do is, like I said, if you know you got to stabilize and you got to do this over a whole alignment, start carrying that in your estimates earlier, because we had a whole bunch of surprises, just spikes in price, so, especially if you go aggregate subgrade. So the chemical is about, last time we checked, it was like $9 a square yard. Aggregate subgrade is like 24. So it's like a 3 times difference. So we typically push for chemical, but divisions have mixed. Two divisions have mixed experience and willingness to use it, and contractors prefer subgrade because they can self-perform. So they have to bring in, and it's a relatively shallow bench as far as chemical stabilization in North Carolina anyways. So they're bringing in some contractor. They have to do all this work. They have to get something subgrade. Then they got to stop and wait on somebody else's schedule to come in, get this right, so that they can come back in and start taking it. So it can be kind of a mess. And I think that's a lot of what has to do with these contractors trying to control their site. Reach out, and we can talk through it. I mean, that's what geopavement's there for now. They've trying to get him to let his other people talk to people instead of him doing all the talking. But yeah, but just let us know. Here to help.
Oh, yeah. Not too bad. Just trying to keep busy. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. I always forget about that. Who was out on the boat? Who was out on the boat? My son. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But some, I mean, I'm sure somebody could log in home. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So put somebody in front of me right now. Are you working on that project? Oh, okay. I did. Did you? Probably gonna talk to you. Yeah. You're gonna think we're presenting.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Last session of the day. We got OpenX and digital delivery update with Wasim here. So enjoy.
All right. Good afternoon, folks, and thank you for sticking around. I know this one's a little tough one with a 2:30 last session. I can't expect about this much crowd. In fact, we were joking with Bruce, like just it might be me and Bruce here for today. Anyways, just want to give you guys an update from that OpenX perspective, mostly more from an OpenX rather than on digital delivery. But before I start, just a little hand exercise here for show of hands. How many folks here are active designers? All right, cool. How many reviewers? All right, cool. And how many review plans in 3D model? Okay. All right, just from my audience. I guess that's all I wanted to just find out, like what level of detail I want to go into with all this. Also, how many have seen my NCLUG slides? Last NCLUG? Okay, good. I think that'll keep this interesting because some of it is repeat, but I've wanted to get into some of the stuff from NCLUG that is really, I think there's, okay, there you go. That's really sort of just helps anybody outside of DOT to understand the whole roles from the CAD support teams. Right now we have about 3 teams, so here's an overview of what I'm going to be going over. Mostly it's CAD support team roles, and then the updates on my teams. Right now, all the stuff that's being looked at from an OpenX perspective and project-wise perspective. And then I'll go a little bit on the digital delivery side. So just a quick summary. Past probably about 6 months or so, my team, we've been almost on an assessment stage, trying to figure out what the existing conditions are with OpenX, with the project-wise, and also from a digital delivery standpoint. From my own personal perspective, I've changed few roles past 4 years. I was with ORD implementation when we just started in 2021, introducing ORD to our system. So my role with Jeff Garland in the CAD services team was to get ORD started for our department. And then from there on, I moved on to a different role with the roadway design research and standard team. And my focus was totally different. It was more on roadway design standards and updates for the design manual. And so then now I'm switching gears back to CAD integration team with this OpenX and project-wise. So there was a lot of that past couple of years of that me switching role. I just wanted to find out where we stand from the OpenX perspective and project-wise. And so that's why last 7 months has been just gauging that existing conditions and trying to figure out like where are we on this, all the OpenX and project-wise and all. Right now, I think at this point we kind of feel comfortable with me and Bruce here in implementing some of the things that'll help both the department and also external side from a plan production standpoint and also with project-wise and OpenX workflow. So I'll go get into the CAD support team roles. So we have about 3 teams. There are NCDOT unit CAD coordinators. There's NCDIT CAD services team. That's commonly known as CAD services, but officially they're called Engineering, Design, and CAD Services, EDCS team. We're big in names. And my team here, NCDOT CAD integration team. Overall, purpose is the same. Serve NCDOT, serve industry partners on all CAD support type questions. But I think some of the things, just lessons learned over the years, is knowing which CAD group to contact for what type of questions will help expedite answers and also replies. And so just want to get a little bit detailed into these teams' roles and what they do. I'll start with the NCDOT unit CAD coordinators. So we have about 16 plus or minus disciplines. And so each discipline has either a coordinator that's focused on CAD side or has a team of CAD coordinators. Very few units have a team. Most of them are these individual engineers basically wearing two hats. You know, they'll help with CAD support, but they also help with their everyday design projects and other tasks. So I'm really appreciative of that aspect of these unit CAD coordinators. They'll, you know, they fight these fires of CAD issues and questions from emails and stuff, but at the same time they're also working on projects and actual project stuff. So this is where you would go for unit specific questions. You know, anything from a roadway specific CAD questions or roadway specific or hydro specific workflow or workspace question. These are the experts. They do this every day. They know what they're doing with in their units, and so it's easy to get the answers from them. How do you contact them? I have two ways right now. Short term, there's a CAD coordinator contact list in the ORD version migration guideline, page 10. And then the long term, we're working on the knowledge base, ORD knowledge base website. It's a forum-based site. I'll go into detail of the site a little later. You would ask, why I shoved this into a page 10 of a document. It's a short-term solution. And also, I have a project version migration guideline out there on the website that deals with the decisions on when to migrate projects on which phase of ORD, and also project phases. I'll go into detail of that too later on. But basically, if you Google NCDOT open roads, this website should pop up. And then on the corner there, you'll see the ORD version migration guidelines. There's also an NCDOT OpenX training list. I didn't realize this was that fuzzy. But there's a training document there. It lists all the training links from all the units and disciplines, as well as Bentley trainings on OpenX. So it's a one-page go-to for any training videos or classes or what so. Next one is the CAD services, the EDCS team. Basically, the origination for their team is from NCDIT. So NCDIT is probably about 10, 12-year-old agency. Show of hands, how many are familiar with the old Office of Information Technology that existed? No. All right, cool. Yes, I think that's rarely folks know. I think that's the change in times right now. Back then, that agency never really had more central role because the data and IT aspect of things weren't too much involved. Right now, NCDIT is front and center with lot of different departments. Right now with DMV, DOT, and so it's a huge department, and NCDIT EDCS team is just part of that. These guys are dedicated for the CAD and project-wise support. We have two teams, though they have all these dedicated folks in there. CAD support and application support. So Kyle, Noman, Randy, and Ethan. Ethan Schwartz is a Bentley embed. He's a ORD special support person that we have embedded with the team. So any ORD questions, any workspace questions from a Bentley perspective, he helps with those. Any workflow, any workspace type challenges and stuff. We also have the project-wise support team, Will Chandler and Elizabeth Lee. Will is NCDOT employee, and Elizabeth is Bentley embed. She's a project-wise admin. So any questions on like project-wise permissions and folder structuring, file permissions, workspace setups or something, some issues on projects. These guys are the go-to folks for that. Other folks, Jeff Garland, Faith Driver, and Sandra, they're helping my team with the CAD manual. So we're working on the CAD manual that should be out by December. The purpose with the CAD manual is to compile all our trainings, all our workspace descriptions on files, levels, everything in one manual. So it's a version 1, so don't get your hopes too high with the CAD manual. It's a start. We're trying to get everything together, at least the existing stuff in it first. And then we're going to start compiling a lot more detail into it, a lot more workspace files, a lot more descriptions on levels and DGN libs and feature definitions and what of these workspaces are, why is this folder for and all that. So it's in works. Like I said, this team is really involved with a lot of these project-wise permissions, CAD workspace, zip files, and then general guidelines on any NCDOT, general plotting or locations of files and all that stuff. How do you contact them? Project-wise, there's dot.projectwise support@ncdot email, and then there's CAD application and support email for any ORD or any CAD or application issues that you'll have. Usually the application issues are in-house. Outside is mostly just the ORD issues or some connection issues with some files or some internal linking to aerial one maps or something. So you can Google CAD, NCDOT CAD services. That this website should pop up. They have a sidebar with contact list, and you can contact from there. I want to go into the OpenX knowledge base site. So this is fairly new site. Designers like me, we always have a filter on the side on our emails with all these little corridor model folder and SS2 corridor model folder where we save all these emails that come from either all these CAD pointers or on how to do things. So, probably last 15, 20 years, that's how the workflow has been always. Everybody's inboxes have these emails. And then when somebody asks a question from a CAD support side, it's the same repeat email that somebody's got to either type up again and then send it off, or from a user side, it just stays in somebody's inbox all along and never gets distributed to other users or new users. So for that, we figured come up with this OpenX knowledge base site. Nothing different than your regular, over there on the websites with these car forums or appliance forums where you look for your car troubles. How do I change an oil? You go to a forum and people answer, this is how you change your oil, and then you rate that the answers. So similar site here. All these buttons here. So each one has each unit dedicated folks that the same CAD pointers that are in the list. They're tagged to these buttons here. Utilities, CAD support, rail, roadway. However, these are easy buttons for each discipline. You hit that button and magically all your problems are solved. So this is a flex seal for CAD support. No, just kidding. So these are the specific type questions. So, it's easy. They go directly to those guys for solutions. So it's easier. It's getting things out of the inboxes and putting it on the forum. So big picture idea here is, once these things get started, they'll stay in the forums, and then there's a rating system for each replies. So you can upvote the answers. And so then as these upvotes get more and more numbers, it's like the typical sites, one of the hot topics. It comes up as a hot topic, as one of those most asked questions type topics. So it's easier to navigate and sort through questions. There's two tabs on that site. One is a knowledge tab, which is more of an article-based tab. So anything, for example, how do you install ORD 1012 workspace? There'd be an article for that. Or how do you, log in on ProjectWise or something. So more article-based type would be in the knowledge section. And then Q&A has all these questions like this, for example, on template origin or sheet numbering or stuff like that. There's also a search in there, so you can search off of terms and by discipline. And so it'll sort things out, narrow things down to certain discipline type questions. It's ready for internal use. External access is coming soon. This is an NCID-based system, so it works with your NCID login. Right now, DIT is trying to get the logins for external folks, the PEFs and consultants, getting their access and the security and all those things squared away right now. So it should be up soon. But right now, internally, it's ready. Internally, it's a struggle right now trying to get everybody outside that inbox. It's a 30-year-old habit of sending an email, asking questions. That habit's got to break and have it in the forum. So working on that right now. Lastly, I'm going to go over my team's role, and then the rest of the slides, I'll go through the short-term solutions on planned production, OpenX, ProjectWise, and then digital delivery. Here's my team. So it's growing slowly. So right now it's me, Wasim, and Bruce over here is my part of my team. Show of hands, how many know me? Wasim? Okay. All right, just gauging. And how many know Bruce? All right, awesome, perfect. So just quickly run down on my experience. So I'm 15-year roadway design experience, some rail experience, extensive 3D modeling experience, mostly in SS2 and inroads, some in ORD, mix of DOTs experience. I've been in consultant, and I've switched from project management to ORD implementation back to roadway design, manual updates, standards, research, and then back to your CAD integration. So jumped quite a few places. Bruce here, 6+ or minus experience in the industry. He was deeply involved with location survey, 3D workspace development. So, and he has new ideas, fresh, and so he's a great help. He gives that fresh perspective. I think most of the 30-year-old, 20-year-old here, like me and 15-year-olds, we have that baggage of that SS2 geopack criteria, and so we always fall back on this old workflow. So that is something I get a great from Bruce on these new ideas and new workflow questions and stuff. So a good mindset to have in my team. I also have these two folks here, same last names, still filling out them. So it's going to be a while, but what do I do? What do we do all day? Basically, it's mostly coordinating with a lot of these disciplines on consistency and efficiency on our workflow. So a lot of stuff about ORD workflows, 3D workflows, ProjectWise, SharePoint. How do we change our mindset and the old 30-year-old work habits on these disciplines and files and sharing files, and how do you share and model item types and estimates and pay items, and also a lot of coordination between disciplines. Realigning workspace is one of the topics we're looking at. We're also assisting with digital delivery with the management. You might have, if you've been here yesterday, Matt Clark mentioned about the digital delivery groups we're starting. So my group is helping pre-construction, construction, and asset management to streamline the ORD, ProjectWise, and OpenX, the whole data lifecycle pretty much for how does a project flow from pre-construction all the way to asset management with digital as-builds. So with that said, my team is open to feedback. We're looking for how can we fix a lot of these workflows. What are you all seeing outside? We see internal perspective, but we're open to that external perspective as well from a consulting side. How does it work from other DOTs? End of the day, we want to see what's working with other DOTs, implement how things going to be working in here, and then figure out how we can implement the same or similar workflow rather than reinvent the whole wheel. So, poll, I'm not sure, is it going to work? Slido? Or too late for a Slido poll question? The poll question? I don't know if they had a Slido on that. Okay. All right, so we're going to skip. I think this was a little a poll question. Maybe I'll just do a hand exercise here. What can NCDOT do to help provide consistency? Well, this one's a little different. Let's just skip this one. This one's more for words. I did this in the morning, so this is a repeat session. We had a Slido before in the morning, so it was a easy QR code scanning and giving surveys. We'll skip this. Our team's working on the workspace, NCDOT workspace right now, trying to see where we can realign workspace. So one of the mindsets here is we've been using the same workspace since V7. Or if you're familiar with that, old software with Geopack and SS2 criteria. Back then, the mindset was 2D plans, 2D deliverables, and so all along we've been using our workspace from a 2D perspective. And the workflow now has changed to an open roads, ProjectWise, a lot of collaborative environment. So we're trying to look back and see if there are anything in our workspace that can be simplified. One is the whole siloed workspace format that we have right now to a more collaborative workspace environment. And so as a start, we're having Bentley evaluate our workspace, NCDOT workspace. This was done before, and back in 2021, one of the Bentley folks, they'll evaluate all our workspace features, and then they give their recommendations. Based on those recommendations, I want to go back to table with our internal folks and discuss things that we can not necessarily change. I don't want to change everything in the workspace. I don't want to break anything that's already working. So things, for example, like customizations on things like labels and stuff that might be customized, or any features, or any complexities that are not out of the box from the software that we've been customizing over the years. Like I said, there's a lot of this. This is what Bentley's going to look at. They'll look at all our workspace configs. They look at from the OpenX workflow, review and standardize the work environment. Labeling is one thing they'll look at. Reviewing and adjusting annotations. 3D terrain, graphical terrains. So right now, before, back in corridor modeling days, SS2, 2D, roadway was the only one that was creating graphical terrains, and maybe a location survey. So right now, every discipline is going to have some sort of a terrain for the 3D deliverables. And so we don't want to customize those terrains and make it so complicated that when we're doing future estimates, item types, pay items, and all that stuff, and also looking at from a clash detection standpoint, from a utilities perspective, it makes it more complicated to do all these checks. And also looking at the template libraries, for example, roadway template libraries, hydro, there's going to be more from structures in these 3D template libraries. So from that perspective, can we make these template libraries more simpler, more uniform, so then these point names in the templates can be simplified to work between interconnected with these disciplines. So once the Bentley does their assessment, my next step is get these project disciplines together, discuss these findings from Bentley, and then use these, coordinate with consultants what they see outside, and then realign our workspace, wherever we can, to simplify things. Skip through the poll questions. So one of the poll questions was, do we prefer 2 versions or 1 versions? I'm not sure if idea behind was, how many here are familiar with these 2 terms, or can differentiate these 2 terms, ORD versions and conversions? If you know the differences, yes, no? Raise of hand, yes. Okay, perfect. All right, so 2 different things. ORD versions is more of a software versions. So Bentley, so for example, open roads, we have every year 2 major versions gets released from Bentley. Right now, I'll go into detail a little next couple slides, but those are the software versions. The conversions are the SS2 old project conversions to open roads or open bridge or these newer softwares. Both are pain points for us, and my team's looking at these from a perspective of project CAD plan production standpoint. Here's an example sample mind map from what a decision looks like from a user perspective on migrating a project from ORD one version to another one. Here's a list of all these versions. So since 2020, we had about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 versions. And the problem right now is how often do you want to change your project, upgrade your project to the next version? Because if you look at that number of years of these releases, on an average, a project lasts about 4 years, 5 years, a typical bridge project. That means you're probably going to be switching your projects to about 5 different versions. And that can, I think so far right now with 10, 12, and 2023, the versions are getting stable. but it's still a headache moving from one version to the other, especially at a right of way or a final stage area. So teams looking at those from that perspective is how often do we want to upgrade these things. I have a version migration guideline on the website. It gives you a flowchart on these stages of project and when to move these projects, upgrade these projects to the next version. This is a version 1 document, so version of a version document. So a second version I'm looking at from an OBD, ORD, Open Rail perspective. And then I think this year, by end of this year, ORD 2024 should be out. So I'm also looking at from that perspective, is it worth moving to the next version for this project, and when and why? The version migration guideline is, like I said, that page 10 of the CAD coordinator list is on that PDF. Show of hands, how many here are aware this guideline has been there for a few months? Okay, that's one of the issues right now is we got documents all over the website, and it's hard to find what's new and what's old. So one of the solution is that ORD knowledge base site, that thing has an announcement page and a section in there for what's being announced, what's been posted for all the units and the disciplines on training and stuff like this. So my hope is to already have it all in some one place, so then it's easier to go to and for these new announcements and all that. Also want to go into the ORD conversion a little bit. So this is not that critical anymore. I think a lot of projects are being done in ORD, but I acknowledge there are still projects in SS2, and every now and then you'll have consultants or divisions asking for how do I convert these projects. Multiple piloting happened over the years. First one, 2021, in-house with roadway design unit. Each one had a different goal. So there's another one with OpenX committee trying to figure out how is there an easy button for converting these projects from SS2 to ORD. And then my team here with the hopes that with the new improvements and all that stuff, maybe there's some new tool out there that we can use for conversions. Go in a little bit detail on this. Roadway Design Unit 2021 came up with this conversion guidelines. Idea behind this was to come up with some sort of guideline for the users to understand how much level of effort it's going to take to convert a project. This guideline goes through a lot of different projects. The idea was we selected about, I think, 3 projects with different sizes and different phases, complexities, and just wanted to find out from SS2 all the way. Let's just convert these projects and see how long it takes. So it goes through little sections like these where it'll give you a little range of like how much it's going to take to, for example, here, how much it's going to take to rebuild an intersection from an SS2 to an ORD. So about 1 to 2 hours for here, for example. So the goal was to provide that level of effort range, so then you can gauge how long or how much it's going to take to convert a project based on its complexities and the length. OpenX committee did the similar piloting projects. But the goal here was to develop some sort of standard scope, and they have standard scope available right now for these projects on conversions. And then my team here. So this was the last effort my team wanted to make, just to make sure if like recent changes with all these development tools and version changes, if there's any magic button out there that we could use for converting these projects from older projects to a new one already. End of the day, do minimum conversions. That was the final decisions on after doing this piloting and checking and testing. I'll go into detail more of the reasons why minimum conversions is beneficial. So when we piloted these projects, one of the decisions me and DIT, Jeff's team with CAD Services, one of the decisions was to hire Bentley and also hire somebody in Bentley that had NCDOT experience, somebody who was a veteran roadway or veteran NCDOT that knows our workflow, so then they can give us a better understanding of how our workflow works and how the conversion is going to affect us. And so we had a couple of folks in Bentley that were veteran roadway engineers in NCDOT. last 15 years they've been working with Bentley, and so it was good insight, getting their insight on and feedback on how the history behind these decisions on our workspace is, and also get some insight on the conversion guidelines. One thing I'll say is there are remapper tools both from NCDOT and Bentley that can remap to a lot of things from SS2 older software to ORD. But all these remappers aren't perfect. Somebody manually has to go in there either to remap certain items in the conversion, or manually map those items first and then remap. Use the remapper to move the project forward to the next ORD or OBD. The conversion tools also has dependency alignment conversions. For example, it's called dependency reports. You can print those reports off of these tools to generate some of these guidelines on interconnectivity on these templates. So then you can convert them to ORD. Again, same thing. I think lot of that relies heavily on how much disciplined those older projects were done by the modelers. For example, back in days with SS2 and even with corridor modeling, the idea was 25 feet cross sections or 50 feet cross sections, and project deadlines, project requirements. Every project was a little bit modeled a little bit differently. A lot of hand modifications in cross sections, so model might not reflect the cross sections. So when you ended up converting those projects, your cross sections didn't reflect your model. And so there's a lot of that manual work that goes into these conversions that then on the hindsight you start thinking, I think the minimum conversion is probably a better idea, just because you can utilize the minimum conversions of alignments and existing location survey files, and then use the ORD workflow to move those projects forward. It's a lot more faster, a lot more efficient, and also even from a stability standpoint, a lot less freezes and stalls on the software as well. Team's also looking at the 2D and 3D deliverables. So my team's looking at this from the perspective of planned production. A little interesting thing here. So I'll go into the 3D model ready a little later, but the point I want to make here is that 2D and 3D design deliverables, for example, 2D deliverables, even though from a SS2 standpoint and ORD may look similar, but the amount of data and amount of intelligence that go into these files now is a lot more than it used to be before. Before, we used to use simple lines and curves to draw these, I don't want to call them dumb lines, but they were like simple lines, So with these new ORD workflows, even though those simple lines are drawn in, they have some sort of intelligence in them. Labeling is a little bit different. Sheeting is a little bit different. And so my team's looking at from that perspective, all those disciplines, and trying to figure out which disciplines are really 2D ready or 3D ready. When I say 3D ready, for example, here, 3D needs to communicate all that information. Whatever your model is needs to communicate that information to the next unit, disciplines, contractors, or for as-built workflow. And so we want to bridge that communication gap between technical and non-technical stakeholders with these 3D designs and all that stuff. So when we say 3D model ready, what it means is having appropriate software tools, design standards, templates, and then the workflow is tailored to produce accurate functional 3D designs. What it doesn't mean is that the units aren't ready for fully digital delivery goals. For example, the BEAM workflow, or the asset management systems, or the full data lifecycle type workflows. So that is something that's going to be an ongoing enhancements as we move forward with these projects. My team's looking at it from that perspective with all these disciplines here, with a PDN workflow in mind, and then trying to figure out who's ready with those deliverables in 2Ds and 3Ds. So it's mostly for my team to as a dashboard. Basically, the idea behind this whole assessment is to come up with a level of detailed guidelines. So the goal here is to come up with these guidelines that are divided in each phases of the project. So then it gives users some idea on how much they want to model these projects at these phases. So, for a preliminary phase or 25% plans, or, we don't want to go full modeling on these projects and utilize all our mandates and effort on knowing that model might change by the time it reaches right-of-way stage. So here, for example, you'll see cross sections here grayed out. Again, the workflow has changed. The cross sections aren't 2D anymore, even though they look on sheets as 2D. Sheeting workflow has changed. Same thing here with 3D. So it's in progress right now. These aren't necessarily the ORD ready or not ready statuses on these disciplines, but it's something my team, me and Bruce, are trying to gauge which disciplines are at what level with these deliverables. I'm also working on that OpenX sample plan set. So this should be out in a week or two. We identified a lot of these. There's always a need. I think there was always a need for this plan set. The idea behind the plan set is just to get that deliverable plan set at each phase of ORD. How does an OpenX plan set look like? And right now, so far, we've been getting these projects, but there are variations on these projects. And given there's no sample set to look at, so it's hard for, even from internal perspective and external, to understand what the needs are. So this should be out. I'm planning on talking with the DIT team to house these sample plan sets on SharePoint, have a common access to everyone, so then they can access these sample plan sets and look at it. Again, these plan sets won't have everything on them. If there is a need for something that you see is missing, for example, I'm going to throw in there. This isn't just one project plan set. It's going to be a mix of plan sheets from various projects. I'm trying to gauge what kind of sheets we need to be putting in there for references. For example, basic bridge project will have all the sheets in there, but you'll also have interchange sheets, summary sheets, all these different sheets from all these disciplines in there. I'm sure I'm going to miss some in there, but if you see any, send me an email. Me and Bruce here will coordinate with the disciplines and get these sheets on there for sample. Show of hands. I did do a show of hands earlier. How many design reviewers here? Awesome. All right. My genuine request with these plans, these are sample plans, and these are just for samples for ORD sets. Don't go reviewing the design and give me feedback on the design looks crap. Sorry. I'm just trying to give you guys some sort of ORD plan set, so then it's needed. I think you can see it, and then you can understand what's needed from a delivery perspective. In fact, I'm putting a little disclaimer on each PDF. I think I had a disclaimer here. Please note that the plan set that are being provided for demonstration prints, sheet layout, and plan preparation only. So, just a request. Next thing is plotting. So, team's working on plotting. So I know there's a lot of plotting files and steps and stuff out there in modules and training, all these discipline websites. There's a lot of plot drivers and pen tables in our workspace. My team is trying to identify what pen table is used for what purpose. Our plan is to compile all this into one document and also have them in the CAD manual. So this should be coming out in a couple of weeks as well. So you'll have some sort of plotting guidelines for each discipline, and also the files and stuff, where they're located, which files to use. Because there's going to be some units use combination of these plot drivers, config files, and pen tables. I want to map all these out so then it's easier from a deliverable standpoint. So plotting guidelines will be out. We also have the sheeting module. So there was one of those things. There's always a need for sheeting guidelines, how to sheet ORD projects. Each discipline has a little different guideline. So those guidelines are out there. My goal is to compile all them into some sort of one document, so then it's easier either link them or put them in one document, so then it's easier to just go into one document and look at those sheeting guidelines. Some of the concerns I want to go through with is I always get these. Our workflow is changing, and so there's a lot of impacts on efficiency and evaluations on designs, and the workflow is changing. Couple of recommendations over the years from my own perspective, as well as a coder, as a modeler and designer, and even from our team, just talking with internal and external folks. Engage in a lot of these cross-team communications. I think there's going to be a lot of that internal, external engagement on how is the workflow changing, and what is the best workflow for this particular milestone. I'm also trying to break those silos. I think over time, I think we have a lot of these, especially in NCDOT workspaces, there's a lot of these silos in these disciplines. So having that collaborative environment, having that workflow is pretty crucial from an OpenX and project-wise standpoint. So I also think there's these problems, like I said, problems are similar, times are different. I look back 20, 30 years ago when we moved from hand-drawn plans to CAD plans. I'm sure people said, they could do their drawings faster by hand drawing them versus CAD. Fast forward now, I think I see the similar deal here. They could do projects faster in SS2 than they can in ORD. But I think there's a lot of that lessons. I think learning curve to go over and old habits and reevaluating our workflow as well. Like how is that 30-year-old workflow still legit, or do we need to change that workflow? Another concern is the legal liability concern for the signed and sealed models. Right now, that's not none of our team's concern. I mean, it's a goal for digital delivery later on. Right now, my team's just focused on short-term fixes for the needs and concern for as far as planned production and the 3D model. So trying to find guidance, trying to provide guidance, look for training needs, what are the gaps I can fill with all the trainings, and then also piloting projects. Right now, my team's going to be a lot more involved with these contractors on piloting projects, sending them these corridor modeling files and getting their feedback on what exactly do they really use from those corridor models, and then utilize those to our needs on our level of detail guidelines. In the meantime, like Matt mentioned in his presentation yesterday on digital delivery, right now, NCDOT is going through organizing the digital delivery work groups between pre-construction, construction, and asset management. So my team's going to be engaged with them. So that those teams will be dealing with NCBEL and other organizations to get that legal and liability concerns for the signed and sealed model in the meantime. So our goal here is just to get that fixed, the short-term plan production areas fixed before we move on to the whole digital delivery side. Training's another thing we're identifying, like I said, and also trying to figure out some sort of mechanism between internal and external trainings. How can we utilize external folks into the training? How do we add those trainings into the system? Right now, my team's really engaged with division on-site training. We're going through each division with hands-on open doors training. All of September was pretty much central and a little bit of eastern divisions. Western, we had planned all this month, but I think right now OpenX is probably least of their concerns. So that training is probably going to be moved to sometime down March or so. But that's where we're going with this mindset is train hands-on on open roads project-wise, how to review models, how to do review plans in ORD. And then the next step is start getting those trainings into the central with the project managers, and also then starts getting these trainings outside externally. How can I provide these trainings externally? So it's a lot of stuff going on in my team. So this is one of those things where I want to open up this to our industry more, be more receptive, more coordinating with the external folks. Another location my team's looking at is the CAD file location. So here's a 30-year-old process. We used to store files internally in NCDOT in project server locations. These were local servers. Fast forward, now we have ProjectWise, we have SharePoint, and all these other locations in divisions. We're looking at it from a common data environment mindset. So OpenX, ProjectWise, how does that whole data lifecycle process happens between the contractors, digital as-builds, and then the whole cycle goes back to pre-construction. And for that, right now we're looking at ProjectWise for all our project storage. This builds that whole common data environment, and so we have everything on one place. Couple things from ProjectWise. So we're looking at the project folder structuring. I'll go into details on these a little bit more. And we're also looking at file versioning inside ProjectWise. How can we version files? Project model data storage locations in each project. These are all project-specific model files, model data that needs to be placed in these projects from a 3D model perspective. And I'm also looking at for the division folders, standardizing the division folders. So let me go through the project folder structuring. So you would think, last 30 years, we've been doing design, same projects. What affects these project folders? Here's an example for an alignment file. We've been using these alignment files past 30 years. Back then it was an SS2 workflow, so there was no 3D aspect to things. Right now, same alignment files is being shared with a lot of these different models. Hydraulics, drainage, roadway, bridge, geotech, location survey. And so a lot of our workflow is changing from a model template sharing perspective. And just to give you an example from an alignment to a drainage perspective, right now we model all our ditches, and that requires having access to that alignment file. And also those models rely on those alignment files. Templates rely on those alignment files. And if that alignment file isn't shared between roadway and hydro, then that workflow gets a little difficult. Either replicate that alignment in hydraulics or you share that alignment with hydraulics. So sharing again opens up that whole risk of it's the backbone for the project, so I don't want to share my alignment with all the disciplines. A little mistake can be crucial for our projects on these alignments. So a lot of those discussions are happening, and so that's where my team's looking at from that perspective on this folder structuring. Are there opportunities out there to restructure our folders to make this workflow a little bit simpler, easier? Same example here with corridor modeling files. A few years ago, we had one corridor model files in roadway, and that's about it. Now we have corridor modeling files for each discipline, roadway, hydro, structures. And so how will these model files talk to each other? How are they referenced? How much do they want to be referenced? So a lot of these conversions get into these all folder structuring and also file management and file federation type questions. So my team's looking at these from all these disciplines and understanding how we want to go back and restructure our folders if there's a need for restructuring. ProjectWise file versioning is another option we're looking at. How many here are familiar with ProjectWise file versioning? All right, so works similar, just like your SharePoint document sets. I think if you're familiar with document sets on SharePoint or key documents on SharePoint, basically the idea behind this is you can use the same file, freeze it for that particular version. For example, here you'll see different milestone versions, DRPS milestones, and then right-of-way milestones. And then there are a few right-of-way revisions, so you can add these file versions for each revision milestones. But these are all read-only project versions. Same files, same name, but they are versioned, and so it's easier to make these sets inside ProjectWise. From an efficiency standpoint, it works really great. We've been doing these pilot projects with couple of bridge projects in-house in roadway. We did this from the get-go on these projects, start to finish. Right now, the projects are, I think, almost at a right-of-way stage. And it's worked really good with all these different disciplines for all these milestone deliverables. So the files stay as is. Users can change their views to make the views look different, so then they don't see all these same file names with all these various different versions in there. Pros, but then there's also cons here. Why not to move to the versions? One of the issues with the version control is anything that goes outside of ProjectWise, then your versioning breaks. If you, for example, copied that project outside into a local server or something, or on your hard drive, on your C drive, or SharePoint, zip it, then the whole auditing, the version control breaks. You cannot roll back the versions. It pretty much works just like your Windows files. You have to rename these files with each version names on them, and that breaks. There's no central system pretty much to track all these changes, just like it has inside ProjectWise. And so somebody's either got to keep up with it. It's almost similar to the old workflow. Somebody's got to keep up with those edits and make sure the files remain in these different sets. So that's why me and my team here is kind of looking at other DOTs. Other DOTs already have these file versioning in place. My team's coordinating with them, trying to figure out all these lessons learned from them, understand how their versioning is working. And if it's working fine, then we'll look into our workflow and see how we can use this feature inside ProjectWise. Again, we'll skip all the polling here. Another thing we're looking at is from a project model data storage. So more and more right now, if you're a modeler or designer, you probably identify this problem more than others. But I could relate this for the non-modelers here. Basically, if you look at from a SS2 workflow standpoint, some of these projects have these municipal requests, for example, on let's say a bridge railing, a fancy bridge railing, or a sidewalk railing. We don't have a cell library that has that railing in there in our workspace. So for the users right now to model them, they'll have to save that particular railing in some folder somewhere. And so I'm providing that particular folder location in each project for that project specific customization. This again goes into this whole 3D workspace modeling. So there's a lot of elements in modeling that require some sort of project customization. So this gives them space where they can store all these custom project model files. One thing I want to note here is nothing here is going to be customized outside of NCDOT workspace. So everything, whatever's getting customized, is going to follow our symbology sheet, our NCDOT workspace standards. So within those boundaries, anything that's being customized can be stored in these files, in these folders. So I'm in the process of discussing this with internal CAD groups, and then I should be following up with this in some sort of email announcement on our decision on using this folder. Lastly, division folder standardization. Right now, ProjectWise, we have division folders separate from our standard typical TIP folder structures. These are a little bit different because division workflow is a little bit different. Their requirements are a little bit different. A lot of these projects don't have a standard TIP numbers on them, and so they need a lot more flexibility, wearing different hats. Some of these division folks use, they wear different hats for different designs and stuff. So our goal here is to give a lot of flexibility in these projects, but at the same time, also want to make sure our file naming and all that stuff is standardized. So we're looking at from that perspective, sort of standardize that file naming conventions and all that stuff, while at the same time give them some flexibility on those projects. With all that, right now there's a lot of talk between DIT, DOT, with software integration, hardware, training. So times have changed. Right now, used to be only DOT discussions would happen only on a DOT platform. Right now, I almost talk almost on a daily or a weekly basis with DIT on a lot of these ProjectWise and CAD integration type questions. So there's a lot of collaboration going on right now with those teams. Again, a little bit on digital delivery. Right now, looking at from a common data environment, my team's working with the digital delivery groups, pre-construction, construction, asset management. And also, we also have few industry partners, both from contracting side and the consulting side in this digital delivery groups. So a lot of all that will be coming up. I think next 6-7 months you'll probably see a lot more things happening in DOT from a digital delivery standpoint. Management wants to push this. They're really looking at this from a serious perspective, trying to push this whole our workflow from digitizing our workflow from all three perspectives, through pre-construction, construction, and asset management. With all that said, though, there are all these different. So we have this digital. There's one push for digital side, but there's also these other agencies that require paper plans, paper documents. They want to have sealed documents, hard copies. So my team with the digital delivery groups are leveraging that, walking that little fine line where we want to balance that approach. We still want to use plan sets. We still want to use the paper plans for these agencies, but at the same time also look at the models and look at the contractor's perspective. How much of that model can be utilized? I almost see this as our auto industry, pretty much from a gas car to an electric and a hybrid to autonomous cars. Right now we're in that gray area where all these cars are pretty much on the road, and I see this as the same for the next few years, or who knows, probably 10 years or of this whole hybrid workflow where you'll have these digital models out there, but at the same time you also have paper products for these agencies and stuff for use until everybody else is ready for that digital plans. This is a little long roads ahead, but still not that long. I think I want to look in. My team also want to look at it from a design review standpoint. How do we review? How do we want to review models? We want to create those checklists. We do have these 2D plan checklists out there right now. We want to revisit those checklists from a 3D model review perspective. So that is something in the works. It'll be a little while, but I think right now I still want to pursue this from each discipline and try to figure out. Other DOTs already have these checklists out there. So my goal with my team is just review those checklists, see what's working for them, and then go back to our tables and see how our workflow can integrate those checklists and then just create our own checklist. With that, a little literature showcase from our beloved author, ChatGPT, and I wrap up my slides from here. So, any questions on anything? More questions? Yes, afternoon, late afternoon. Yes. You talking from a review standpoint, or just? Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So there's two things going on right now. One is there's a Bentley infrastructure cloud with Synchro on the software. It's with Bentley. So we're looking at from that perspective, how can the reviewers utilize these same models without opening open roads or CAD software. And these are all based off of Chrome or Internet Explorer. So it's an easy access. As long as you're part of the project team, you can access these projects. It works off of ProjectWise. We haven't looked at it yet, but there's ideas floating around on that same concept of having some sort of way where you don't have to use an actual CAD program, but you can still use all the flexibility and capability of checking plans. You know, we're tested. It's just me and my team here. We've been testing these things with these PFs on consultants on things that they already have in place right now, and stuff like the intersection slopes or tines and vertical clearances and profile clearances and elevations and pipe. So a lot of that can be done in that software. So, but we haven't looked at it from a licensing perspective. So it's in works right now. So yes. Yes. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, we'll look into that. I'll probably, are you on NCDOT? Okay. Oh, okay. Sure. Sure. Hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'll look into that. It's a good idea. It's just one of those things, but so far Atlas hasn't been pointed out as one of those avenues. But I also look at it from all these different disciplines perspective, which one works for which discipline. So, but I'll definitely look into that. So, yeah. That's all right. Okay. Yes. Any other questions? All right, ready to go home, I guess. Cool, perfect. PDHs, yes. He has a QR code, right, somewhere? And also there's one on the wall.
Yeah, there's a QR code over here on the wall for PDHs, and then I will here shortly get one pulled up on the screen. You bear with me 1 second. That's yours, isn't it? Yeah. What'd you do with it? Oh, you pulled it out, didn't you?